Hiya. It's like so peaceful here today. The roosters finally stopped. I seriously was gonna slit a throat this morning. I know that sounds terrible, but I don't know what is going on with the roosters. They're right across the street from me. There's a church and they do amazing work in the community. They take in homeless people in the winter. There it goes. See, it knew I was talking about him. And he's like getting up way too early. I mean, I know they're early birds, but it's been like 4 a.m. every morning. And I swear it knows that I'm out for him. It's funny that he's like, yeah, I know you're talking about me. But it is so peaceful when he's not yapping. It's just been a super peaceful morning here. I'm enjoying today. I wanted to talk about, in yoga we say that health is wealth. And we are seeing a rise of so many diseases and illnesses. I believe a lot of it is environmentally driven. But then also, our choices of what we ingest and what we eat and drink out of, the quality of our water, how well we're sleeping. And sometimes that's very much determined by if you're working the night shift or if you have children, are you a single parent? Are you working 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet? So when we read these things on social media, it can be a little bit heartbreaking. I think a lot of people don't really think about what some people are going through. I think oftentimes people read those things like, yeah, I know I need sunlight. I know I need to sleep better. I know I need to eat better, but I work 16 hours a day and I can't always cook my own meals. Some things are just not always within reach. And I completely honor that and I get it. We can do the best we can in terms of meal prepping, or if you have to go to a fast food place, making it more of like a healthier version. I mean, I completely understand these things. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. Sometimes you have to, pick the lesser of two evils. Or maybe out of that seeming laundry list of things that you is recommended to do to stay healthy, you can prioritize and focus a few of them, and not stress yourself out that you have to have all of them down pat. So I get all that, but I'm the type of person that if you told me, because I was so sick or beyond sick, if you said to me, eat dog poop every day, 5 times a day for a year, and that's all you can have, I would have done it. So I also know that not everybody is extremely compliant. They don't have the willpower, the desire, or the motivation to get themselves well. I've also seen that side of it too. And I saw that when I was doing nutritional counseling, and it's why I left, because I would have people making me feel, and that could have been my own insecurity at the time too, I acknowledge that, but I would feel so deflated and like I was this terrible health counselor when I was like, but I know my stuff and I know what I'm doing. But then somebody would be like, yeah, well, I ate like a whole bag of Oreo cookies last night and, you're crap and this isn't working. And I found just a lot of people did not want to be compliant. There wasn't a lot of follow through and there was a lack of taking responsibility for their decisions. And that was very difficult for me because you can't force people to make changes. And so I didn't love that, and I kind of left the health coaching realm because there's enough of them anyway. That arena doesn't need me. I felt like my time and energy was better served elsewhere. Sometimes you need to know when to throw in the towel, You need to be very honest with yourself, like this just isn't the right direction for me, and there's nothing wrong with that. Pivot. Do you remember that scene in Friends with the couch? Chandler and Rachel and Ross going up the stairs, and Ross is yelling, pivot, pivot, I die. And then Chandler's like, shut up. And I just lose it. But since COVID, we've all had to learn how to pivot a lot. And it always reminds me of that scene. And so, in life, in your professional life, and your career and your personal life, we often have to learn how to pivot and, when to say yes and when to say no. But I was really, really sick. I don't want to get into the crux of that, but it was bad. I mean, it was so bad that they wanted to ship me off to the Mayo Clinic. No doctors knew what to do with me. And and I hate to say this, but it was a lot of male doctors. It really was. I have to get gender specific here because it honestly, every male doctor I went to was like, you're a hypochondriac, you have anxiety, you're gonna have to be on Xanax every day for the rest of your life, which by the way, I took for 2 or 3 months after the birth of my second daughter for postpartum depression. And I was like a zombie on Xanax. And I knew, so I was like 24 years old and I didn't want to take it. But nobody liked being around me. And I think my mom had a hard time seeing how much I struggled. But I also had a family that didn't believe in postpartum depression. It was like, well, your mom had all these kids and she had all these pregnancies and she never had postpartum depression. It was like, they didn't think it was real. They just thought I was depressed. So I think my mom didn't want me to take medicine, but she wanted me to feel better. And so it was kind of like, just take it. And I was a zombie. It was like I felt happy in my brain, but nothing was connecting. And I knew, I was like, this isn't good. I shouldn't be on this. I don't like it. I'm not supposed to be on this. And I, got myself off pretty quickly. So, a lot of the female doctors had a little bit more compassion, but they didn't know what to do with me. And that's how I stumbled upon acupuncture, which I'd always known about, but homeopathy. And I will do a deeper dive into homeopathy. But I was basically, the short end of it was, I was emaciatedly skinny. I look back on pictures of me and it was like I was withering away. I was down to like 105 pounds, maybe even lower than that at one point. I couldn't eat. My hands shook like rivet guns. When I swallowed, it was like I was swallowing nails. I knew intuitively something was very, very wrong. And I'm a type O blood type. And if you know anything about the blood type diet, which saved me, that is one of the tools that I used to heal myself at that time. And I used to send people at the health food store that I worked at, I used to send our customers to Connecticut to go see him or one of his team members, and they'd all come back and say, thank you, this has changed my life. And when I was actively counseling people for nutrition and health and wellness, I would put them on the blood type diet according to their blood type, and then I would throw in a little TCM and Ayurveda in there. So I've always loved the blood type diet. And I'm not saying it's tried and true, but what I loved about Diadamo was, the 80-20 rule. And so that was greatly helpful. But homeopathy saved me. I mean, it absolutely saved me. And my defiance. I just did a video talking about being disagreeable. I could be quite disagreeable. Some people use the word stubborn. And I swear to you, sometimes my stubbornness has actually absolutely saved me from getting into trouble, making bad decisions. So there's nothing wrong with being disagreeable or being stubborn. It's kind of like, like anything else, harnessing the things that would be considered quote unquote more negative to your advantage. And that's a skill. So homeopathy saved me, and I would not buy into the narrative that the doctors were offering me. And so my homeopath at the time was different. I wasn't seeing Pika. I was seeing Dr. John Jenko in the Rumson area of New Jersey, and he is a board certified physician, which was unique. He left the medical field to practice homeopathy, and I was very attracted to him because his daughter was extremely ill and he couldn't get her better. And he's like, there's something wrong here. Like intuitively, he understood, I am a doctor and I cannot help my daughter. Nothing is working. He hit on homeopathy, and he's like jack of all trades. He actually went to law school and became a lawyer. No, he was an accountant, I think, first. Then he became a lawyer, and then he became a doctor, and then he became a homeopath. And I was like, you're like my hero. I love people like that. Like you're never too old to change your mind, reinvent yourself, switch gears, pivot. Still cracks me up. So I really liked this guy, a Renaissance man, like my cup of tea. And I was very attracted to that. And he sat across from me and he said, I'm not going to lie to you, Carrie. And I loved how forthcoming and direct and honest he was. He said, you are the largest onion I've ever had to peel. So in homeopathy, the idea is that you're continually peeling the layers of the onion, and each remedy or remedies that are prescribed peels the layers. And you're working on a very specific level. It's very unique. A lot of people say it's a placebo. And no, Dr. John Janko used to say all the time, well, if it's a placebo, who cares? If you feel better and it's working, then who cares, right? Because you're essentially taking a sugar pill. Sometimes it's a liquid dilution, and you would succuss and then, apply the remedy as prescribed. And if this is like going over your head, it's actually extremely simple. So you're taking elements of nature like an herb or a mineral, and you're diluting it to such a small dilution. You could take a whole vial of homeopathic pellets. You don't have to call 911. You're not being poisoned. All you're going to do is feel an aggravation of exactly what you're trying to heal. And that is, the healing crisis. And so it is a cure. It's not a Band-Aid, right? So if you have anxiety and depression, they're giving you remedies to peel the onion enough so that the symptoms are going to be expressed. There's going to be an exacerbation of the symptoms. That's what homeopathy does. But then the healing occurs as you peel those layers. And so there's different dilutions. They come in X's and C's, LMs. They can make liquids, and then you would do a succussion, which means you take the bottle and you bang it on your palm, and you might succuss twice. You might succuss 5 times. You might succuss 15 times. You might be taking only 1 drop under the tongue. You might be prescribed 5 drops under the tongue. And then there's classically trained homeopaths. So there's all different kinds of homeopaths. The classically trained would be more like Pika, who I now see, which is 1 remedy at a time, and you stay with that remedy for a hot minute. Where Dr. Janko, being a Renaissance man and more of a pioneer in general, would prescribe you multiple remedies at a time, giving you your constitutional remedy at the same time. And you would take that usually in a C dose, so 6C, 30C, 200C, and then you would take the other remedies in X's. So the X's work on the physical, and then the C's and the LMs work on more of the mental, emotional. And so even though there's higher dilutions, it is so non-toxic. And this is basically what I raised my kids on. Predominantly was homeopathy, and then dry needling acupuncture until they were old enough to hold the needles in for at least, 5-10 minutes maybe. But so homeopathy is the law of similar. It's like cures like. And Hahnemann, I believe he was like a German physicist. He discovered this, the law of similars. So you are dosing yourself with the exact ailment. And I cannot tell you how amazingly wonderful this has been. And, the shame of it is, Whole Foods is going to stop carrying homeopathic pellets. Bezos has his hand in everything. He's now like the new god. And you're probably only going to be able to get these pellets through Amazon. I hope it doesn't come to that. But Boron is a French company, and they're kind of the leaders in homeopathy, and you can order directly from Boron. There are some other competitive companies. When I was a sales rep, we represented Heal, HBI, and they're a great company. There's also Highlands Homeopathics, which is a beautiful company. I used to do demos for them, and they function more for pregnant mamas and babies. And that's what my kids were raised on until they were able to switch to the other pellets. And they're sugar pills. They taste like a piece of candy. You dilute it under the tongue. Sometimes I chew them. And you don't want to eat or drink within 10 minutes. And then if you have a really more austere homeopath, they'll tell you no mint, no minty toothpaste near around that time. Some are hardcore. Dr. Janko was never like that. Pika has never directed me in any kind of zany way, but those people are out there, and they just feel like they're staying true to the core principles of homeopathy, which I understand, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, but I also want to talk about quantum healing. Homeopathy saved me back then. Also my intuition. And my intuition guided me to a doctor in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, outside of Princeton. His name was Dr. Simone, and he was one of Ronald Reagan's oncologists. And although extremely egoic in one way, he was a master at what he did. And he was probably a functional doctor back in that day, before functional doctors even really were a mainstream thing. And I tended to seek out those people because I love mavericks and pioneers, in case you haven't noticed that about me. I'm like, well, who's doing something different? That's my person, right? And so I went to him and he was like, something else is going on. And according to the blood type diet, typos are highly prone to H. pylori. And he's like, I think you have H. pylori, which is a really serious bacterial infection. And sure enough, all that weight loss, my hands shaking like rivet guns, stealth infections are huge, people. They're huge. I have seen people get off of hardcore meds for anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia. Look at Dr. Kelly Brogan's much, much earlier findings when she was hardcore into being an MD and treating people for mental health disorders. She's a holistic psychiatrist, but she's kind of gone in another arena, and now you can watch her pole dance. I know. And there's nothing wrong with that. But she's diving deep into her femininity and expressing herself in different ways and helping people emotionally and mentally as a holistic psychiatrist in a very unique and different way. Again, she's a pioneer in her own right. Nothing wrong with that. But if you look at her now, you'll go, Carrie, why the hell are you sending me to this woman? So you'd have to go to her earlier research on this. And she was curing people outright of, people with schizophrenia, bipolar, all these hardcore diagnoses and mental health disorders, being told they'd be on meds for the rest of their life. And a lot of it was diet, getting on the right supplements. And there's a lot of stealth infections out there. A lot of stealth infections. So what's a stealth infection? Co-infections from Lyme. Bacterial infections and viral infections that just go undetected. And I kid you not, I took the meds. I'm not a big medicine person. He put me on medication and it was like a complete and utter turnaround. That feeling in my throat went away. My hands stopped shaking. I was going into hyperthyroid symptoms, and it was all driven by the bacteria. Because these stealth infections they're insidious and they're intelligent, and they go to the weakest parts of your body. They know what they're doing. And I also had undiagnosed Lyme at this time. And so between the blood type diet, which had totally saved me, because I was trying macrobiotics, I did Ayurveda according to my dosha, I did all these things. I got certified as a health and wellness practitioner. So I was in nutrition school for a year because I was determined. Like, I'm going to fix myself. I'm going to cure myself. I'm going to figure this out. I know I'm not a hypochondriac. I know I don't have an anxiety disorder. And if you look at the statistics, it's always a woman being diagnosed with those two things by a male doctor. Women's complaints are very much overlooked. And when you have autoimmune issues, the symptoms are silent. You can look very healthy on the outside, but your inside is screaming, and you need somebody who's going to listen to you. I mean, everything in me wanted to mail this doctor a letter and tell him to go F off, right? Because he just kept telling me that it was, it's in your head and you have an anxiety disorder and you have to accept it. I mean, imagine that. Imagine if I didn't have the mind and the will that I have. And I was like, okay, I'll just take Xanax every day for the rest of my life and then become immune to that. And then that's not going to work. And then you're going to prescribe me something else. And then you'll probably put me on 2 or 3 other more meds. And I'm not, if you're watching this and you're on meds, I'm not telling you to get off your meds, but I am telling you, dig deeper. This is a strong suggestion. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to strongly suggest that you dig deeper, because heavy metal toxicity, any kind of stealth infection screws with your entire system, especially your brain, and you will feel like you're going crazy. I felt like I was going out of my mind. And when I started treating stealth infections, I was like, I got my mind back. And I think that's Kelly Brogan's, one of her most famous books is A Mind of Your Own or something like that. And that book really changed so much for me back in that day. And I was never diagnosed with anything beyond anxiety, but Lyme and Lyme co-infections create huge amounts of anxiety and depression. Huge. Like most people will say, I was unrecognizable to myself. It's like you're stuck in this alternate reality or universe, like you're watching life outside of yourself. I really can't explain it to people. I mean, I could barely get out of bed for a year. And I was at one point, racing triathlons, which dug the Lyme deeper, because we know that any type of hardcore cardiovascular exercise, the Lyme feeds off of that because you're so deprived of oxygen. So the best way to help get Lyme, because it digs so deep and it gets into the muscle, is actually weight training. Is one of the best ways, and that it's hard. They actually recommend like no more than once or twice a week for no more than 5 minutes a day. Like you really have to go slow. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Lyme pain is not the same pain as I worked out and my muscles are recovering, and boy, I'm really achy and sore. Lyme pain is like I can't get out of bed for 5 days after working out. What is going on? What's wrong with me? That's how bad it is. And so I'm going to talk about something else. And if anyone's interested in more information on homeopathy, I could do 8 million videos on homeopathy, because I can't tell you how life-changing it's been. And there's so many different aspects of it. Like you can take bacteria in a homeopathic remedy. Like there's petrified beef, and you can take that in a homeopathic remedy for digestion. Just it's mind-blowing what these little pellets can do. And again, safer than safe. I've watched my kids take a whole bottle. All they're going to do is have an exacerbation of whatever that remedy was trying to heal. And so, I was a really large onion. I mean, Dr. Jenko said, you are one of my most complex patients. When you had to fill out his questionnaire, it was intense. And it took me days to fill this out. He's like, I've never encountered this before. But he was the first person who looked me in the eyes and said, because remember, I also talked yesterday in my video about having somebody who believes in you. This is in every area of your life. He said, I will be relentless with you. You have my word. We will get to the bottom of this. You will feel better. You will get your health back. I will not give up on you, Carrie. And he was the first person to say that to me. He was the first person. Just hearing that changed my mind. The neurons in my brain started rewiring differently. I could feel it. My energy changed. Oh my gosh, I have somebody who has my back. I have somebody who's going to fight for me. Because everyone in my family thought I had an eating disorder. I mean, really? Why would anyone go through the lengths to fake being so ill to cover up an eating disorder? Is beyond me, because I'm definitely somebody who doesn't enjoy being sick. I say this a million times over. I better be rocking life into my 80s, or I don't want to be here. I need full mobility. I don't want anybody taking care of me. I like my independence. I like to remain as self-sufficient as possible. It's very important for me to have that type of autonomy. This isn't an I am woman, hear me roar thing. It's just in me. It's part of my spirit and who I am. I need that. I also need support and help like everybody else, but I need to have a sense of autonomy and independence. And so, quantum healing. I discovered quantum healing. I was still in New Jersey. My girls were still in high school. So we're going back at least 7 years, 8 years. And I was so curious. And I was also desperate, which are really like, that's a good, powerful combination. Because it's good to be curious in your desperation, and try different things and get outside of yourself and your ideas about things. That's never a bad thing. But I'm a pretty open person, so I was open to quantum healing. So I started working with a woman in Oslo, Norway. And I was having amazing results. And if you know anything about quantum healers are very expensive, like most alternative modalities. she was giving me deals and working with me. We actually became pretty good friends, and I was doing some work to help her translate things from, Norwegian to English and etc. And so I worked with her on and off for years. And when I moved to South Carolina, and I was still on Facebook at that time, I discovered a woman in Montana, and she did a free live clearing for me, and I felt it like instantly. And I was like, wow, this woman's powerful, and I need to get back to this. And so I've been using a quantum healer for 2 years. It has been my absolute ace in the hole. I love this woman. I still do sessions with her. She's extremely affordable. She really does not see private clients anymore, so it's mainly group sessions through the airways. I know a lot of people don't believe in this, but the quantum field has been proven. It's physics. It's real. And there are many ways to skin a cat. So if you are someone who is desperate to heal and get better, believe me, I get it. I've struggled with my health since I've been a kid. Finally, it was a functional medicine doctor who sat down and said, Carrie, I think you've had Lyme since you've been a really young kid. Because I was on antibiotics all the time. I constantly had upper respiratory infections. I had asthma at one point, and I was always athletic and super active. And, I just started having really bizarre symptoms, and they got worse and worse and worse as I got older. And then whatever, got into me at the tail end of my marriage, and emotions, stress, that all plays into it. But stealth infections are physical. We can't blame everything on the emotional or the mental. And these infections are physical, and they need to be physically addressed. And what I love about the quantum healer that I work with is that she can address bacteria and viruses and a lot of things through quantum healing, and you're not taking anything. I'm at the point where I'm on one supplement. I don't take anything. My body is so insanely sensitive that I can't even take supplements or herbs anymore if I wanted to. I mean, I used to drink a ton of herbal teas, and now I can only drink green tea, on occasion chamomile. And I share this because, listen, I'm not on here to incessantly talk about myself, but I talk about my experiences because it's the only way that I can have this be relatable. I've been through some really weird, bizarre things in 46 short years on this planet. I've been through things that most people in their lifetime won't experience that in their whole lifetime. I've just had this weird life. I don't know. I think it's all helped me help other people. I sometimes withstand in resentment of a lot of things, like, we buried all these people, we had all this trauma, and then I had to marry a guy who was like really not a good person. Or, and then I had to have all of these crazy illnesses. It always seemed to be one thing after another. And when I started to understand this was part of my purpose, and then I'm just a highly sensitive being on a planet that is being bombarded with all of these toxins, and then the horrific things that we're doing to our soils and our food system, and the things being sprayed into the air. And none of this is really a conspiracy theory. I envy the people who don't experience these things. But when you are so sensitive, you're just tuned into different energies and frequencies. It's very hard for me to explain it. It's like what I was saying in another video, where I can walk into a room and be like, nope, or meet someone and be extremely repelled. And it's very, abrupt and forceful with me. It's like, I cannot be around this person. It's honestly why I just left my one job. The environment was just too much for me. I energetically, I couldn't handle it. It was overwhelming, and I felt depleted and exhausted every time I left there. Just wasn't for me. So quantum healing is powerful. I have no problem sharing with people who I use. I would love to share her information. I think she's amazing. She makes it super affordable, which is lovely. And you can look into the body code. You can research quantum healing and quantum healers. I'm not here to convince anyone. Those days are over. I used to, want everybody to buy into the things that I knew to be true and the things that I knew would be helpful. And these are just suggestions. Sometimes I'll make a strong recommendation, because if you're somebody who's really suffering, and I was really suffering, I want to let you know that there are alternatives. There's other avenues. There's other ways to go about things. Homeopathy's gentle. Quantum healing is gentle. She has a Lyme co-infections session I've done multiple times. Some people only need one. Some people, the Lyme and co-infections is deeper. She gives free assessments. I do not feel like this woman is in it for the money. I think she could be charging way more money than she does. I think she's got a big heart and she's a giver, and she really just wants to help people. And also her story is quite riveting. She had Lyme and co-infections and other things going on. And she almost died from Lyme, which isn't, people die from Lyme's disease. People are wheelchair bound, bed bound, go blind from Lyme. I mean, this isn't a joke. It's not something you want to joke around with. And people are so worried about the Lyme, and I'm like, be worried about the co-infections, because it's really the co-infections that cause the most damage. But yeah, I just, and I still struggle. I still have really, there's flare-ups, there's things that just trigger whatever remnants are left. I just did a Lyme co-infection session with her a couple months ago, and I felt really, really good after. She does detox sessions. She does a lot for the physical, spiritual, emotional. So you can do like I'm trying to think, taking back your personal power session. You can do an abundance prosperity, but there's Epstein-Barr, there's Lyme, there's COVID. She has a COVID session, and that's for people who want to rid their body of certain things that they may have done and might regret that decision. Just a whole host of stuff. Parasites, bacteria. She has one just called bacteria. That's outside of the Lyme and co-infections, because we know co-infections are also bacterial. She has one for gut instinct. Like if you feel like your instincts are off. She has one for relationships, balancing the masculine and feminine. She has an issue specific every Monday, so you just give her one area you want to work on. And again, I can't stress enough, it's been so amazingly helpful. I haven't been to a doctor in years. Listen, I'm not an idiot. If I get into a car accident and my arm is hanging off my body, give me the morphine, give me the drugs, stitch me up. You're a freaking rock star. I appreciate you. I'm going to bake you Christmas cookies every year until you take your dying breath, your last breath. But I no longer run to a doctor for every fart and fiddle, as my mother would say, because I never got anywhere. I felt mistreated. I felt unseen and unheard, except for the doctors that I went to who left the mainstream medical field and went into alternative practices. And those were my saviors. So it's very important when you have chronic illness or dis-ease, which remember, disease is dis-ease. It's a lack of ease in your body. I believe almost everything is curable, and you can hold two opposite beliefs at the same time. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. I believe everything is curable, but I also believe when it's your time, it's your time. So like my mom was diagnosed and gone in 6 weeks. And I believe that it was my mother's time. Do I believe my mother could have cured herself if she really wanted to? I don't think my mother wanted to. I think my mom had had enough and she was ready to go. And I fully believe that. Like my sister Kim was given 3 months and lived 2 years. The power of the mind is freaking amazing. You can believe and will yourself into different circumstances, into a different timeline in your life. I mean, I do believe we have that power, but I also believe that what's meant to be is meant to be. And I feel like you can absolutely rationally hold those two beliefs in tandem and they both be correct. But, you know, if you are suffering and you're sick, my heart is with you. Again, please don't ever, I feel, you know, there's someone else I follow on Instagram and he says, I did the suffering for you. I did all the hard work for you. And it sounds so like pretentious and arrogant. And I really don't, I try to be as modest and humble as possible. I struggled to think good of myself for so long. I'll never be that person. You know, I still struggle with confidence and self-esteem like 95% of people in this world. There are still things that I have to work on like everybody else. So, I hope to God that I never give off that impression on this channel. It's the last thing that I want to do. But I do feel like I have gone through certain things that were very challenging and hard so that I could be of greater help to people who are attracted to my work and my channel and my energy. And that's all it is. You're either repelled by me or you're very attracted to me. That's been my whole life. There's never an in-between. People are extremely attracted to my energy or they're extremely repelled. And that's totally fine. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But if you need some additional support, if you have questions for me, please, 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 please reach out. Check out Quantum Healing. If you want to know the woman's name who I've been working with, I'll be glad to share it with you. If you are someone that's in New Jersey and you want Pika's info or Dr. John Jenko's info, I will gladly share those with you as well. And as always, I wish you so much love. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye, y'all.